So I would buy the big boxes of blow pops and I would sell them for 25 cents a piece or 5 for $1 and make basically, 3x my investment in almost a day. Unfortunately, holding an enterprise that's not sanctioned by the middle school is frowned upon, so I wound up with a little bit of a suspension there.
What does it mean to plant your flag? It means you're not afraid.
It means you're passionate about what you do.
It means you're here to serve others.
In business, in life.
In good and bad.
You aren't afraid to fly your colors proudly because you know
you serve a greater purpose. This is the Plant Your Flag podcast with Mike Bean
and Jeremy Mountain.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Plant Your Flag. We're starting off our first episode of Season 3. We're joined by an exciting guest, and he's been the founder of not one, but two separate companies. He's built a career around using business technology to drive real business to get real results. So I'd like to introduce John Porter to our table here today. John Porter is here from Square Sigma, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got your start and what and who inspired you to plant your flag.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thanks for having me. Straight out of school, I actually started my career in aerospace, believe it or not. I had probably the coolest job title without actually having a cool job, which was a satellite systems engineer for Lockheed Martin, and we were working on classified projects. But if you know anything about satellites, they're actually in orbit, so they don't necessarily need anybody to fly them. And it's a pretty boring job altogether. So I actually had one of my friends leave the same job and go to a software company and join this kind of role as a pre-sales engineer. They were the folks that went along with the sales team to help communicate what the solution actually did from a technology perspective. And it helped close really big opportunities. He was actually working at a company called Siebel. That company fundamentally actually also bought the company I went to go work for 5 years later. And then that company got bought by Oracle. And then ultimately I left there and went to SAP and spent a ton of my career in the center of excellence around CRM, go-to-market changes, and value engineering. And what that helped with was really understanding why people bought, what technologies they used, and what technologies you could sell them in order to make their life more efficient. With that, I worked with a couple people in the background for a number of years trying to figure out how do I create a business that will drive real measurable change for organizations. And in 2011, myself and another co-founder, Jim Berryhill, who was a great both mentor to me, because he had spent 30 years at that point in the software space, but also a great partner. We started a company called DecisionLink that helped salespeople build business cases and communicate the value of their solutions from day one when they engage with customers and help them measure whether or not they were delivering that value. And we had customers that were massive. I was actually shocked at times on who was using our software. We had companies like Workday and ServiceNow and IBM and Oracle using our technology. And so that was just a really good experience for me. It helped me understand what it takes to become an entrepreneur, what it takes to build a company, not just a product, and ultimately how you can help service an industry that has real need for change as a starting point.
Did you do this because you saw that there was a huge hole somewhere?
Yeah, so we drilled in when I was at SAP. They had a whole team of people that were called value engineers. And Bill McDermott, who's now the president of ServiceNow, he was the CEO of SAP America and ultimately became the CEO of SAP over time. He was okay with spending a quarter point of revenue on this function because he knew that if you could communicate your value more effectively to the buyer, it would actually be a non-product way of differentiating your offerings. And so that team was really good at building really sizable business cases for their biggest and most strategic opportunities. And we would close multi-million dollar deals on the backs of these business cases. What I found was an opportunity to improve was it was done on the biggest opportunities, not all opportunities.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a mechanism that would allow that to scale. And so we thought if we could take and this is back in the 2011 timeframe, if we could take the brain of a value engineer and make it available to the seller versus the really smartest person in the room type syndrome, then we could actually help scale and democratize this concept of value as the starting point for how both customers and companies could engage in the buying process and use it as a catalyst to have better, deeper relationships over time as well.
There's a couple of things that I'd love to ask you. You had mentioned 2011, and I don't want to skip too far ahead because there's some other things that I'd like to talk to you about your past and your drive and what got you to that point. But how much have you seen technology change since then?
It's been night and day. And it's actually been night and day almost in the last 36 months. So for years, once we made the fundamental shift from client server to the cloud as a technology-based SaaS communications, SaaS platforms like Salesforce kind of leading the way as an example. That's where technology kind of stood for a very, very long time. In the last 36 months, with the practical application of artificial intelligence, with people using things not just as a chatbot anymore, but using it as part of their business process, the rapid adoption within businesses and within entrepreneurs and solopreneurs has been just driving a massive seed change in the market from a technology perspective, from a business perspective, and from a capabilities perspective.
Are you finding that there's a lot of people who are having a hard time wrapping their head around it?
There's a lot of people that are fearful of it.
Yeah.
So there's both the concept of, is this going to take away my profession? Is it going to take away my value for the customers that I already have if I'm, say, a point solution in a SaaS world? Is it going to go too far? Right? I think there's always that natural Terminator problem that everybody kind of has this fear of when you think about artificial intelligence as a whole. But then there's the real practical application of it, which is it's not designed to replace anything. It's designed to help scale and speed up and optimize the way that you are working through your own business processes. And if you can use it in that manner, we're seeing just thousands of use cases evolve almost on a daily basis out of it.
That's incredible. What kind of role do you play in that?
So the company DecisionLink that we had founded together, we wound up selling that company to a longtime customer of ours, former president of CrowdStrike. Many of you may have heard of them. They're big in the cybersecurity space. And after I left that company from the point of the acquisition, I started thinking about what is next in both the build out, but also how can I help organizations, entrepreneurs, et cetera, be more effective with the technology that's actually coming to the market. And because the technology was changing so rapidly, I wanted to get ahead of it. So Squared Sigma has kind of 4 different major capabilities that we bring to the market. Your traditional fractional type of executive go-to-market strategy, because that's where I've built my expertise, both from a technology and a business process perspective, but also we've created a solution called Apps Launcher, and that's designed for non-technical founders or people that have ideas for internal AI projects to be able to have a really solid plan before they start executing a build out. And when I say plan, for example, if you're a solopreneur, building the app is just a small fraction of what you need to do. You need to actually have a complete plan of how you bring that company to life from an incorporation perspective, setting things up like QSBS treatment, qualified small business treatment so that you can, if you sell the company eventually, have some really favorable tax advantages for you. You need to make sure that you are set up for protection, but also not only for you, but your customers, to make sure that if you're doing B2B, that you're ready to be SOC 2 compliant. And a lot of the approach that's been kind of going on, because technology and AI has made things very readily available, has been what I'll call MVP creation, right? So minimum viable product creation. But it's not, if you build it, will they come? It's how do you build a company? How do you build a product that supports the revenue of that company? And then how do you bring the go-to-market strategy to actually start driving revenue around that product?
I love that it's not, if you build it, they will come. It's clear that you're thinking with like the habits of successful people, think with the end in mind, right? So you're not just grabbing somebody's money to just do something like flippantly.
That's right.
You're thinking, helping them through the entire process.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I would say that's more important than anything is that your work processes today are working for you today. It doesn't mean that they're right. It doesn't mean it's the most optimal way to attack it. But if you can start to automate some of the aspects of your existing processes, you can find the holes in those processes to then start streamlining them.
Right.
I think a lot of people are thinking, I have to re-engineer everything and then add AI later. I think if you just add scalability into what you're already doing, you'll be able to develop synergies around those things. And that's where that work process engineering is really starting to become something that if you do it right and you do it effectively, you can then replicate through multiple projects within your enterprise.
Like find like a nuance inside the business that's causing the most problems, and then fix that, and then continue to evolve.
That's right.
I want to go back though. We were talking a little bit before, and we had a lot in common about our upbringing, even though we, from very different towns. But it seems like we both had these, kind of bigger thoughts. Like, I want to do something big, and it started very, very small at a young age. So you had a pretty cool story about that. So what was that first spark where was that plant your flag spark started?
Yeah. So, the story that we're talking about, when I was in middle school, this is when, before Costco, there was a company called Price Club, and you could actually go buy candy and things like that. So I would buy the big boxes of blow pops, and I would sell them for 25 cents a piece or $5 for $1, and make basically, 3x my investment in almost a day. Unfortunately, holding an enterprise that's not sanctioned by the middle school is frowned upon, so I wound up with a little bit of a suspension there. However, it kind of created a desire for me to really follow an entrepreneurial path. And that was, it happened in college as well. I started a company called Outtakes, where we helped small businesses with a one-page website with a coupon, so they could track actually whether or not that coupon was being effective. And this is in the mid to late 90s, so this is early on. I wish I would have followed through on that, because a couple of years later, a company called Groupon came out, so I probably could have pivoted a little bit to get there. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe would have been a little bit different trajectory then. But as I worked through at large software companies like an Oracle, like an SAP, I always had this need to solve problems within the enterprise, or figure out how I could start my own company and take that risk so that I could reap the rewards of my efforts. And I think one of the things that came out of my just soul searching around the topic of whether I should start a company or not was I'm assertively lazy. So what do I mean by that? It means that I don't want to ever do processes that take too long. So I will spend the rest of my life figuring out how to make that process better for everybody else.
I call it aggressively lazy.
Yeah,
that's funny that you say that. Yeah, because sometimes it takes more time to streamline.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, it can pay off. Yeah.
Right? And if you look at what we did with DecisionLink, or you look at what we're doing with Apps Launcher, from the Squared Sigma portfolio. It's designed to shortcut all of the things that I've learned through just decades of either working in big tech or being a founder or managing different aspects of the business than just the technology piece of it. So my goal is how do I keep people from blooding their head on the same wall I've already run through?
What keeps that drive going? Is it just that internal, just like you said, just puzzle solving, or is it just wanting to be, I don't want to say philanthropic because you get paid for it, but like a mix between that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things about it. One, you have to have a great support system, right? Your family, your friends, the people that you trust have to believe in you and your abilities, or else you really got to go it alone. And that's a really tough thing to do. So having a great support system, which I do, I'm lucky to have that, has really given me and empowered me to have the ability to do some of these creative risk-taking moves that I've taken. The second piece of it is, to your point, some of it is paying it forward, right? I think there's a lot of really great ideas that never get off the ground, not because the person didn't have the acumen, the expertise, the experience, the ability, but they didn't have the entire blueprint on how to be successful from day one. And if you could have just given them a couple pieces of information that they didn't know, like, for example, a lot of organizations will go out of business because they didn't set their company up right and they didn't know how to do the taxation properly. It doesn't mean that the idea was bad. It means that they operated the business poorly. And if you can take some of that risk out of it and people can thrive because of it, then usually they're going to help pay it forward as well. They're going to start investing in universities and people, and those are the types of things that get me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, I agree with that, because there's so many mistakes I made because I just jumped out of college and I said, I just want to do something that makes me feel fulfilled. And then just recently I had someone who was working for a mergers and acquisitions company who branched off and they're doing their own thing, and they needed a consultant for some program, business consultant. I was like, absolutely, I'll carve out whatever time. You brought me a ton of business, and you're a good friend, so why wouldn't I do that? I think like those things they don't make sense always on a spreadsheet, but they get you out of bed in the morning.
That's right. Yeah, I think those people that you help become some of your biggest advocates. A really good example, one of my potential customers at the business case company, he started his own business doing virtual reality drug counseling. And
interesting.
So he sent me an Oculus device. I went through it myself. Not that I had that particular problem, but I think the software, the therapy that he actually injected into the VR was ubiquitous enough to actually be something that if you could kind of stretch your mind a little bit, it wasn't so specific to the drug counseling aspect of it. But I helped him through that process. And I talked to him probably once a quarter around how they're doing, what they're, where they're struggling, that type of thing. Because that's meaningful to the world. Right. And if I can have a small part of that, and I don't need any type of credit for it, but just to be part of something like that could change things, those are the opportunities that I think we all, as business owners, as people that are idea people, and people that care about each other, really look for, right? That keep it out of just what's in our wallet, what's in our bank account, to what have we actually contributed to the world. And those are the types of things that, make it beyond us.
Did your business acumen come from your experience in larger corporations, or did it come from curiosity?
Yes. So I would say it came a lot from curiosity, natural curiosity from youth on to my professional career. However, I think the edges got sanded when I wound up in organizations. So the company that I started in my software career, it was a company called Edox, and it was about 300 people when we got acquired. We get acquired in January of 2005 by a company called Siebel. I'll make this important in a second.
You're good.
A year later, Siebel gets acquired by Oracle. I did not change jobs during that. I, moved from an individual contributor to a manager, but I went from a 300-person company to a 5,000-person company to an 80,000-person company without changing jobs in 18 months.
Wow.
And seeing how all of that took place, how when you sell a company, some of the times you have this concept of an earnout, which means if your revenue contribution to the new entity that you've been acquired to, you can get more money, right? So deal structures on how that stuff works. Seeing how large-scale corporations merge and then streamline the talent was something that I saw very interesting as well, because you sometimes need to do less with more, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you are the acquired entity, how do you make a statement inside of that new bigger organization so that you don't become expendable? So for example, me and a team of folks created a black belt program at Oracle to train everybody on the new solutions coming in from Siebel. And, this was not a small company that they acquired. It was a $6 billion company at the time.
Yeah, just a couple shekels.
Yeah, a couple shekels, right? So being able to actually facilitate the importance of the acquired entity was something that I found really, really interesting. And so as, my natural curiosity started to weave into how big organizations do business, it gave me an idea as to what I was in for when I became an entrepreneur.
Right.
Right. And no, I never got to the size of an Oracle or anything like that. However, we tried to operate as best we could with the efficiencies of the big company without all of the red tape of the big company, if you could.
A lot of the people that we've had on this this podcast have talked about the importance of processes and identifying, like we already talked about, the common denominator that's going to help you the quickest. So a lot of this resonates. One of the things I wanted to get back to, though, is that you were talking about great support system. So who is in your support system? Who props you up and kind of gives you that? Because it may have changed, I would imagine, over the time. But there had to have been somebody who gave you the confidence to say, leave this and go. You know what I mean? Do it. You can do it.
Yeah. So I think my parents, first of all, really gave me a willingness to go and look at ideas that were outside of where I was. Mm-hmm. My dad spent over 50 years at the Washington Post. So he was not somebody that would take that risk and go and change positions. But he did at one point. He wound up going to the government printing office. But my mom, as a legal secretary, bounced around a bit. And, I think they kind of instilled in me, even when you're inside of a large organization, you can affect change. And when things aren't working, you can look for alternatives. When we went to, when I was at SAP and the idea of the first company that I founded started to germinate when we got partnered with Jim Berryhill, who his first day in software was the day I was born. Wow. Which is a cool story.
No, I love when that kind of stuff collides.
Yeah, and we didn't figure that out until like 6 years after we were kind of tied at the hip as partners. Yeah. But Jim raised money from his friends and family to pull me out of SAP, so that it was still a big pay cut. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But it was something that it allowed me to have a bit of a parachute,
right?
But to have a softer landing as we started this business. And we had already lined up a number of potential customers that had really marquee names. GE was an early customer. Computer Science Corporations was an early customer. So we were able to get the ground running, and I was able to take a risk without necessarily taking a huge risk.
Right.
And
it seemed attainable.
That's right.
And exciting.
Yeah. And while we thought we would have a minimum viable product in market within 12 to 18 months, it took us 5 years to get there. But we were able to limp along and pivot enough to where we found the right piece of business process change within organizations that they were willing to invest in.
Right.
And, our early days of company, customers like ACI Worldwide that became our first enterprise customer. Today, some of the folks that were part of that deal with me are now Squared Sigma customers at Interac in Canada. So
That's great.
it's one of those things when you prove that you can help deliver real value to your customers, they become your support system naturally. And the people that helped you get there oftentimes also do it. And, my son, who's been my biggest cheerleader all along. So you always worry because you're responsible for taking care of someone. But at the same time, if they become your biggest cheerleader and say, how are you doing today? And, how was your week? Right?
Yeah.
Those types of
That's
things.
fantastic.
It's just awesome. And then, I've got a bedrock of a wife. And she's not only helping me with the business in her spare time to make sure the finances are right, because that's an area that I'm not great with.
That's her background?
She's very frugal with money.
Okay.
So naturally she's that way.
Got it.
But she's actually a commercial real estate appraiser in Canada. But she, in her spare time, helps me make sure that the books are done right and that we're ready for all of the stuff that I am not good at yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, yeah, because anybody in real estate has a ton of paperwork.
that's right.
I don't know how it works in Canada, but we work
It's the
for a
same.
couple, agencies around here. No, I'm super. I'm happy that you've got that background, or that support system. Those folks who may be kind of feeling like they're stuck in corporate world, or maybe they got let go. What kind of advice would you have for them based on your experience?
Yeah, I think they're two different animals for sure, right? So those that are stuck in corporate world, many of them want things to be better for the place that they're at.
Right.
And I think if they can think about using automation, artificial intelligence being part of that automation in many cases, or just how can they affect change at the organization, they will continue to thrive, even though they're kind of stuck because the paycheck holds us.
Yeah.
It holds us in many places we don't necessarily
It's
want
like
to be.
the elephant, right? It's like the tiny little elephant.
Yes,
That's got the chain, and then it grows up and doesn't realize it could break it.
that's right.
Yeah.
And then for those that have been recently laid off, and I know a ton of them from a lot of the big software companies, right? Because there's been, and I think there's been a overriding theme sometimes in the media to jump to conclusions quickly around this is because of AI. I actually don't think much of it is because of AI. I think a lot of the layoffs that we're seeing right now are an effect of overhiring during COVID. And companies are using strategies like return to office and
I
return
was just
to
going to
work
say that. Yeah.
as a way to clean out their coffers for talent. And they're willing to let good people go with bad
Right.
as part of that risk. But I think the part of the fear that's happening around AI is because of some of these mass layoffs that are actually taking place. And I don't think AI is actually the real culprit. It feels like a bit of a red herring in many cases.
It's happening to coincide the timing. If there is any kind of with somebody who's in business and whether they're starting off or they're trying to figure this out on how they can use it to better their business, what AI red flags, do's and don'ts do you have?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, start with something small. If you don't start with something small, it'll never get deployed. I think the stat right now is 70% of all AI initiatives fail, right? It's because they didn't start small most of the time. The other piece of it is if you're leveraging off-the-shelf models, ChatGPT, Claude, even some of the open source ones like a DeepSeek or Kimi K2, make sure that you have security guardrails on them so that people can't jailbreak them. And there's easy ways to do that. But just having a chat bot with a agent that has a prompt in it, there's cybersecurity and hackers are starting to get better at uncovering how to take advantage of those things, right? We've seen jailbreak attempts that have actually gotten credentials that they shouldn't have, or they've started to take over API usage and run people's bills up because of how people have structured their actual AI within their enterprise. So just make sure that you've got it secured. Make sure that you're starting with something small, and make sure that it's solving a real problem.
Right.
Right. If it's not solving a real problem, what you're going to see is it feels like a science project, and nobody actually then uses it or leverages it internally.
You're saying like the team just doesn't get buy-in.
Yeah, it's just that's great, but what, right? Like,
why are we spending our time?
Yeah. One of the biggest kind of learnings that I had in sales, pre-sales, working with customers was to always ask yourself, so what? If you're presenting a slide, so what? Right. And if it doesn't have a material impact on why you're saying it, why the customer would care about it, why you internally would care about it, because internal is also a customer, then so what? Why does it matter?
Right.
And if you do that, you can start to get to the heart of some of the real problems that you want to solve with an organization, whether it be internal or whether you're trying to do something externally as a entrepreneur, solopreneur, et cetera, to help organizations.
I feel like so much of business leadership, business operation boils down to psychology. Mm-hmm. With video production, we always have to think about the why. Mm-hmm. It's similar to what you're saying, and that's so what. So that resonates with me because of how we have to kind of destruct every ad. Mm-hmm. And then, especially with Meta now and the way that they're approaching just the nuances of all the different images and videos and mm-hmm. all of that, we have to be very deliberate about how we approach it. So I think that tracks with me, similar to some of the other stuff that we've talked about so far. So as we're kind of wrapping up here, I just wanted to give you some time to say anything that maybe you didn't get a chance to chat about, and also how someone can get in touch with you if they have questions or they think you may be a great fit to help them with their next business adventure.
Yeah, thanks. So I think the big thing that I'd like to leave everybody with is there's always opportunity to make what you're doing on a daily basis better. If you need somebody to help you kind of flush that out, that's what I do. It's what I'm really skilled at. And that can be things that are across your operational enterprise, across your go-to-market strategy. It could be training sellers. But if there's an opportunity for your organization to get better, I want to lean in, right? And that's how I pay it forward. I think, yes, obviously I want to be compensated fairly for those types of things, but I'm not overly worried about that. We're building, trying to build something great with Squared Sigma that helps many, many organizations change the way that they operate today. And as people start to consider leveraging AI inside of their enterprise, make sure that you're starting small. You're asking the so what question. Why should you do it? Why do it now? And why do it with whatever vendor, whatever model, whatever approach that you could possibly think of. And if you need to get a hold of me, you can get me at john.porter@squaredsigma.com. Super easy.
That's awesome. And you've mentioned too that you're dog with a bone kind of guy, yeah. Right? You if there's an issue, you want to make sure that you can figure out how to get it done.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen that in person, which is really cool. I'm so grateful that you were here, and I'm grateful for everybody else who had chimed in. If you haven't already liked or subscribed, please do, because we've noticed that there's a good portion of the people who watch this podcast on YouTube who haven't subscribed. If you hit that bell and you subscribe, you won't miss another great guest like John Porter right here. So, John, Thanks again.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
Mike.
you.
Appreciate you.
Take care. Way for us to, I screwed that up. An exciting guest with us. It shows how technology and entrepreneurship collides. And I want to welcome you here, John, and say I still feel like I screwed that up horribly. Yeah. Yeah. All right. We are joined by an exciting. Man, I have never struggled this much before. And we'd like to introduce John Porter from Sigma 6. What was it that inspired you to plant your flag?
So before we jumped into that squared sigma, you said Sigma 6.
Oh.
Yeah, it was actually good, though. Thank
Really
you, Mike.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Bye.
Cool. Excellent work.
I closed a lot better than I opened.